Many thanks to fellow Extraction Squad, Clash of the servers, Sea of Tools Cloud, Southern RP server, the Struggle community, the Karma Crew servers, Darts, Friendly DayZ podcast, and the settlement for making this video possible. DayZ 1.29 has changed the damage that melee weapons deal to players, infected, and animals, so I'm going to be going over the monstrous buffs to blunt and craftable weapons in the game, the bonus damage that these weapons have on them to kill infected faster, and how all these changes shift the melee weapon meta. Now, not all blunt and craftable melee weapons got a buff in this patch, so the buffs are restricted to these melee weapon tiers here. These are the only ones that have been affected. Starting with blunt tier 1 weapons, only the little wrench is in this tier, buffed by around 20 to 30% of its health and shock damage. Tier 2 blunt weapons consist of the crowbar, hammer, lead pipe, lug wrench and the meat tenderizer, with decent buffs here, including a sizable buff to heavy health damage here. This is a lot of extra health damage when you're doing a heavy attack, and this tier buff here means that these weapons will finally do more damage than punching somebody. In tier 3 blunt, we have the brass knuckles, the standard baseball bat and the large shovel, getting okay stat increases here. They're not great, it's pretty much the same for tier 4 as well, which only has the pipe wrench in. These are not great buffs, but they are nonetheless buffs. The blunt weapons in the highest tier, tier 5, only has 2 weapons, which is the mace and the sledgehammer. Both of them got pretty good buffs here, especially considering that they're the best weapons in the game, melee weapons to KO players with. The only other 2 weapons that will buff this patch are what are called craftable melee weapons, so this is the crafted tier, and it's tier 3 only for this barbed baseball bat. It's the only weapon in tier 3 crafted, and in tier 4 crafted, the only weapon is the nailed baseball bat, which means that craftable knives, spears, and the sharpened stick were not buffed in this patch. The buffs to the barbed and nailed bat are quite substantial, as you can see, and they actually match the stats of the blunt weapons of the same tier, so this means that crafted tiers are the same as blunt tiers. There are some bleed differences here, but they're basically the same, so that means that the barbed baseball bat is in the exact same tier as the baseball bat, but has a 45% increased bleed chance per hit due to the barbed wire wrapped around it, whereas the nailed version is exactly the same as the pipe wrench, but with a much higher bleed chance. To summarise the biggest buffs to melee weapon stats this patch, the wrench is much more powerful now. It's not going to get you loads of kills, but being able to KO a player in under 3 seconds is quite powerful for such a small little device here. These 5 weapons are also a lot stronger and will help you kill players and infected 20 to 28% faster. Brass knuckles, the baseball bat and the shovel will all kill and KO players in 1 less hit in this patch, so that's very good. And the pipe wrench kills players in 1 hit less too, but the number of hits needed to KO players is still the same for the pipe wrench. As for the mace and sledgehammer, they won't KO players any faster, but they will kill players faster, 1 less hit to kill players with these 2 weapons, so I consider this a monstrous buff, seeing as their shock damage is already really high, and was even buffed from 75 to 80 in this patch. Finally, we have the nailed baseball bat, which got a giga buff, now KOing players in 1 less hit like a lot of other weapons, but killing them 2 hits faster. So this is going to make it much more powerful. It's not the best weapon in the game, but it is a lot better than what it used to be, making the buff to the nailed bat the most substantial of any buff this patch. Due to the buffs to the blunt and the crafted weapons, the ranks for melee weapons have also changed and puts the mace even further out in front of all the other weapons here. The sledgehammer was good in the last patch due to its massive KO potential, but now that it has a lot more health damage output, it sits firmly above the other sharp weapons, moving it from rank 6 to rank 2 in 1.29. The lower tier blunt weapons have moved up a lot in the ranks as shown here, making them a great low tier pick to kill and KO players compared to low tier knives, but the biggest rank up easily goes to the nailed baseball bat. It used to sit at rank 27, now it sits at rank 9 due to it having a great set of decent stats you can see here. Speaking of stats, I added 8 more because the damage we do to infected an animal gets increased by 20% for all melee weapons in DayZ, but for blunt and crafted weapons in particular, they do even more, which I'll cover in another video. In general though, these 4 stats here show that the blunt and crafted weapons of DayZ do around 50% more damage to infected and animals compared to sharp weapons. The other 4 stats here are the damage melee weapons do to base structures, as only 65% of melee weapon health damage is transferred to base structures, which is something that I overlooked in my raiding videos. I do apologise, but I have updated the raiding tools to suit this new info. The melee weapon ranks and stats won't be updated until DayZ 1.29 goes to stable. I don't update the website until the stable patch releases, and knowing the devs, they'll probably tweak some stats here which I'll update for a future video. For now though, here are all the changes to damage per second, time to KO players and time to kill player stats. Do you believe that these changes make blunt weapons too strong, or do you believe that these blunt weapons needed a buff in the craftable ones? I'm sure the devs would like to know your feedback. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.